Picture the scene. It's late. The rain is softly tapping against the glass of the window. The house is completely quiet. Welcome to our latest explainer. Today, we're jumping right into an investigation of a very specific and honestly, a very chilling phenomenon. We're officially accessing file number 010.
I want to drop you right into this scenario. Just imagine it. It's 2:13 in the morning, you're home alone. The whole world is asleep, and then knock, knock, knock. You definitely weren't expecting anyone, right? That sheer atmospheric tension is something literally all of us can relate to. So you stand up, you walk to the door in the dark, and you lean in.
You look through the peephole, bracing yourself. But it's just two kids standing on your doorstep. They look completely ordinary, maybe 10 or 12 years old. And then one of them speaks in this flat, emotionless voice. "Can we come inside?" Now for a split second, human nature kicks in. You actually think about opening the door to help them out. But then they look up, and here is the terrifying twist of this whole legend. Their eyes are completely black, no white, no pupils, just solid darkness. Which brings us to the absolute golden rule of the phenomena we're examining today. Never, ever let them in. Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1, the first encounter, Brian Bethel and the 1990s origin. So to really understand this phenomenon, we have to look at patient 0. Now, sure, mysterious, unsettling children have existed in folklore for centuries, but this specific, highly recognizable legend, it didn't actually explode until the late 1990s. In the decades since then, it's achieved massive internet virality, jumping from obscure message boards to late-night campfires everywhere. But the whole shebang traces back to one guy, a journalist named Brian Bethel. Here is exactly what Brian Bethel reported. He was just sitting in his car when he noticed two kids outside his window. They politely asked for a lift. But before he even looked at them closely, he reported feeling this deep, unexplainable sense of dread. So the crucial point here is that his body was reacting with absolute terror before his brain even processed why. Only then did he actually notice their completely black eyes. He refused their requests and they left.
Moving right along to part 2, a terrifying pattern, the modus operandi.
Bethel's story is terrifying on its own, for sure. But what makes this a true phenomenon is what happened next. Thousands of other reports began pouring in, all sharing a deeply unsettling pattern. Now, what's really interesting about this consistent MO is that these encounters almost always happen late at night. They're entirely unexpected arrivals. And the entities, they always make polite requests for help. To use a phone, to come inside a house, or to get a ride. And just like Brian Bethel, witnesses consistently describe an overwhelming dread right before the reveal of those terrifying eyes. They exhibit this polite, non-violent behavior which somehow just makes the entire experience so much worse.
So why does that make it worse? Well, it's because of this concept right here, permission. The most consistent requirement in this legend is that these kids cannot force entry. They rarely, if ever, try to barge their way in. They must wait for an invitation to cross the threshold. The psychological horror here is just agonizing because the victim has to actively participate. You literally have to invite your own doom inside.
Part 3, paranormal or psychological. Investigating the theories.
With so many consistent reports out there, we have to ask the critical question. Is this paranormal or is it purely psychological? On one hand, we've got people who firmly believe these are supernatural entities. On the other, skeptics and researchers point straight to modern psychological fears. It's a fascinating contrast, really, between ancient monsters roaming the night and the modern evolution of internet folklore.
Let's move on and see how this builds across the different specific theories. The first suggests ghosts or demons. Basically, supernatural entities, masking themselves as innocent beings to trick us. The second theory taps into ancient threshold folklore, suggesting these are ancient beings bound by old rules, requiring an actual invitation to enter a home. And the third theory? That's pure internet psychology. The idea that our modern collective fears have simply been amplified and reshaped by online sharing. We read the story, we feel the fear, and suddenly, a random shadow in the night becomes a black-eyed child.
Which brings us to part 4, why we are afraid, the subversion of innocence.
Regardless of which theory you subscribe to, we really need to understand the mechanics of the fear itself. Why does this specific urban legend continue to terrify people and endure so strongly online? Well, this brilliantly illustrates a core psychological trick. We have a natural, hardwired instinct to protect children.
When we see a child, our expectation is innocence, safety, and trust. But the reality presented in this legend is darkness, predators, and deception. It deliberately twists our protective instincts into a deadly trap. You are essentially punished for your own empathy.
And that leads us right to this chilling quote. This is the frightening core question that keeps the story alive and pulsing through the internet. It forces us to reflect on our own trusting nature. It makes us question our reality, and honestly, the people around us.
Because no explanation has ever been definitively proven, we simply can't close this case. Ghost? Demon? Ancient folklore or modern internet psychology? The truth remains completely elusive. And so, File 010 remains open.
I'll leave you with this final thought for our explainer today. On a quiet night, when the rain is tapping against the glass and someone knocks on your door, will you look through the peephole? Until our next investigation, remember that while we're stepping away from this file for now, countless more remain. Stay curious.